welcome to this event for Polly Atkin for the publication of her wonderful book, Much with Body, a stunning book. The order of the evening will be as such. Polly will read for about 10 minutes, and then we'll have guest authors each reading for about 10 minutes. Then Polly will come back at the end and read for a further 10 minutes. I don't think there's going to be a water show, but she's mentioned that she has been swimming. So thank you. It's lovely to see everyone coming along tonight. We'll talk a little bit about Polly now. Polly Atkin lives in Cumbria. Her first poetry collection, Basic Nest Architecture, appeared in 2017 and was longlisted for the Michael Murphy Memorial Prize. She's also the author of a number of pamphlets, including Shadow Dispatches, which won the Dyslexia Poetry Pamphlet Prize, and that's how I got to know Polly, first of all. And I also went up to the Lake District to meet her at the Dorothy Wordsworth Literature Festival. And it turns out she's got a lot of connections with Dorothy Wordsworth. She's just written a biography, Recovering Dorothy, The Hidden Life of Dorothy Wordsworth, out from Sarah Bandon this year. Is it out now yet? Yes?
It's out November 4th. So
oh my goodness, like imminently.
Yeah, it's like slightly delayed twins.
Okay.
One book, then the next, following shortly after.
Fantastic, very prolific. Right, and she's also working on a memoir exploring place, belonging, and disability. And we always really look forward to her new poems. She has much to say to us. Polly Atkin, let's hear your poems.
Thank you, Amy, so much. And thank you, everybody, for being here. It's so wonderful to see all of your faces and to see all of you present in the Zoom room here. Thank you so much. And I'm really excited to have our three special guest readers today as well, who are joining us from all over the place. So we'll hear more about that in a bit. In the first half, I'm going to read some animal poems. Been thinking of this half of the reading as a kind of cohabitation section. So we're going to start with cohabitation. And if I get to the front of the document, that would help, wouldn't it? Can you all see some poems now? Yeah, excellent. So we're going to start with Queen of the Woods. This is a true story, like all of my poems. Queen of the Woods. The green queen of the woods is dead. I found her skull becoming the forest floor, transmuting to moss, waving towards the thin light as fronds, so damp with reaching, whilst also sinking, becoming earth, whilst also rising out of it, a magnificent mushroom, greening from grey, with eye sockets and nasal sockets and the stubs of horns, like the god she is, scattering herself out into it, the green, re-becoming, feral, lost. The queen of the woods is dead. Long live the queen of the woods. Long may she thrive, may she thrive. It's cheating slightly because she's like alive and not alive. Now, a lot of you will know that there's a lot of frogs in this book, and that's because we get frog invasions in this house. So I'm going to give you 3 whole frog poems. So this is your first frog warning. And this poem was renamed by Emily Hasler, who is here tonight. Hi, Emily, because I was asked to rename it when it was shortlisted for a prize. And I just couldn't, I just panicked and I couldn't do it. So it's called Habitat, and that's because of Emily. And it's completely the right title, thank you. We chased tiny frogs around the bathroom. We chased tiny frogs around the hall. Invisible on the sludge green carpet in the rainy gloom, invisible in the living room on Rental Brown. This house is designed for tiny frogs to hide in, but not to survive in. We wake to find dried tiny frogs curled around hot water pipes, perfectly preserved and even smaller. Tiny frogs are everywhere. We cannot put down our feet. We float above them like lilies, opening and closing with the light, casting our shadows deep. And tiny toads are trying to follow where tiny frogs slither with ease, trying to squeeze their awkward bodies under the front door, where a dog once chewed and scratched in desperate abandonment, carving a sliver of a portal. Tiny toads are not agile. They move as though always dragging through mud. When I open the door to release a tiny frog from the cave of my hand in the morning, a row of tiny toads upturned in a split in the wood on the doorstep, stuck. I think they are dead till I flip them over. They come back to life, but the life is feeble. Tiny frogs hop in your hand, work through. Tiny toads sit in your palm's valley, blinking. Tiny frogs are always moving. Tiny toads are always watching, waiting for the moment your primordial shudder turns to Kinshin schema. In August, a tiny toad follows me into the lake, and I think that the lesson is over. But then more tiny toads, more tiny frogs, invisible on the sludge green, invisible on the brown. We keep letting them out. We keep trying to save them. But this is their truth. We are floundering. We have sunk to the reeds at the bottom of a forgotten pond we call home, an acropolis of tiny toad ghosts. And then in all of my collections, I draw a little animal in the front when I sign them, and it's partly so that I don't have to think of something clever to say. And it's something I stole from going to see graphic comic artists, and they always draw in the front of a book. And in this book, you get a wonky little owl, and that's partly because of this poem, Photograph of an Owl. There's an owl flying through this. You have to know it's there to see it, to pick it out, there against the stone, starting to rise to the trees on the ridge. It began at one corner of the shown universe, startled from its day haunt by our casual voices, our footsteps crunch, crunch on the sun-dried bracken. Impossible to walk quietly this month on this earth, sick and dehydrated, jolted into presence, a blurred, tawny scrawl across vagrant blue fellside, across grey crag speckled with luminous lichen. Silent, its silence, giving it up. Only owl is so there and so not. Huge and unhearable, unmistakable and unlocatable. Feather fleck or lichen, flying through this and out. Frog 2. Frog season. You have been hunched on the sofa all evening, trying to drag something up, to force it to manifest in the dark, take shape out of shadows. It's not what you think. It never is it? When you get up to fill and boil the kettle, you're caught in the hall. The carpet splits into legs, striped flanks, that tiny, brilliant, wriggling symbol. Your heart leaps up. One by the front door on the way in. You make your drink. One by the back door on the way out. You gather each as you find it, distinguished by movement, releasing them out of the door they seem closest to achieving. You are saving them or thwarting them. You need to understand how their world is mapped. Alone in the house and the first 2 frog night of summer. The heat has passed. You lay the duvet back on the bed. You declare frog season, heralded by the rain, the closing of the school gates, the gurgling drains. When you regain your post, you have a new sense of purpose. A tiny moth circles the halo of the lamp. You wait for the rest to arrive. Segue into deer, hunting the stag. The stag doesn't visit because you want him to. It doesn't work like that. He doesn't materialize when you go out to look for him, with a good camera this time, coiled around your neck, and your sheepskin hat with the ear flaps on. He does not trot down from the hill to greet you, tamed by your need. He has his own matters to attend to. What did you expect? You know what you become when you're like this. Too much, too much. Scanning for movement in the undergrowth, beady and atavistic. When you press your palm on the stone gatepost and wish, your wish is selfish. The heron passes asking, what are you missing when you only look for big things? A selfish wish never comes good. He is higher than you can walk today, or deeper. You cannot make him come to you. Not the great stag with his rustling mane, not even the small roe with his sapling antlers. He will be standing in the shadow of the side street when you lock up the shop. He will be standing in the shadow of the house when you stay out too long, talking on the path through the trees about lost till the fells dissolved into dusk and push you down to him. You will feel him before you hear him. You will hear him before you see him. He will seem to step out of the walls of your house or through him. You will think he is waiting for you, but you are incidental. He will go to a place you haven't worked for years, wade into the lake, bristling as swans ripple out from his image. Don't want so much. Come down from the woods, empty your pockets of pine cones and sticks. Light the fire. It doesn't work like that. Light the candles. Nothing does. That's really an ode to my tendency towards magical thinking, that I think things will fix things that they can't possibly fix. But there we go. Third frog warning, third and final frog of the evening. And hopefully, unlike on launch day, where thinking about this did create 2 frogs in the house, suddenly 3 won't appear in front of me. We'll see. Pond life. Each night before bed, I check for frogs. I count frogs to bring myself to the limits of sleep or mammalian life, to stand apart or together, 2 at the threshold, 1 perched on a blue plastic bag by the garden door, 1 muddying the dark between his legs as I launch 1 out into the flower bed, 1 wriggling round the hinge of the front door as he opens it for the 1 still tickling in my hands, 2 hopping in opposite directions in the hall, 1 trying to phase to spectral in the bathroom. Soon enough, the passing of weeks is measured by size of frog. When 1 apparates by the cupboard solid enough to hold tight in 1 hand without crushing or wiggling through, I think pond life is complete. But more sprout out of the skirting, flimsy as pinky fingernails, flinging their camouflaged bodies at our feet. Pond life is forever. Pond life is ours. The carpet wavers in dim pond light like water, thickened by movement and weeds. And this is the last of my first half poems. I called this section cohabitation, and a lot of these things kind of cohabit with us accidentally, which might be said of the creature that appears in this poem too, who is our cat, who moved in with us. She chose to come and live with us, and we had no choice about it. And she said that I couldn't talk about other animals without also including her. So she appears in this in this poem, slightly startled. Epiphany insomnia. When I close my eyelids, I'm not shutting out light. I'm drawing the blinds. The light source is internal. It's like draping a cloth over a TV when the TV is still on, sound blaring, mouthing drama. Behind my eyelids, the light is blue and cold like screen light, agitating, the projections thrown on their walls and the animating source. I lay down my head on the pillow, ready to vanish, unconscious, and the carousel starts up, incandescence and music, grinning horses. We all know this one. Inappropriate flippancy of the wakeful body, the blanket in the chair, the hot water bottle like a life raft in the frozen sea of the night, the cat unsettled by our cat-like watchfulness, how our body disturbs, swimming around the night house, alarmed by gravity. Sleeplessness is contagious. We are quarantined somewhere between a vision state and an open-edged dream. Thank you. So next, I'm very excited to announce, I feel like this is like a concert, it's Polly and Friends, because all the 3 readers who are reading for us today, I'm lucky to count as friends as well as peers. And first off, we're going to hear from Claudine Toutangi, whose second collection, Two Tongues with Carcanet, came out. I've written here 2002. Obviously it wasn't. It was 2020. It was last year, not a squillion years ago, which followed her 2017 debut, Smoothie. And Two Tongues has just been shortlisted for the 2021 Ledbury Munter Poetry Prize. I don't know how to pronounce that. for second collections, which is really amazing and really well deserved because it's an absolutely phenomenal collection. And she also writes for stage and radio. So I'm going to stop screen sharing my work and now share Claudine's. Okay, I think we're there. Can we see poems? We can see poems. Okay. Claudine, I'll hand over to you to speak.
Hello, there we go. Wow. Sorry about that, everyone. That was partially my fault. No, there's a tale behind it. I don't know if people want to hear it. I'm going to very quickly say it. It's embarrassing, but why not? When we started, I was all agog. I was ready for Polly's poems, and I accidentally kickstarted the White Lotus on my iTunes TV show. And then a lot of techno horrors occurred, which included logging off and logging on. And I apologize. I think in the process, I got muted for good, which maybe would have been for the best. But here I am, and I'm so happy that I can be here in support of Polly and be reading with Hannah and with Erin. It's just such a treat on this Wednesday night. So, goodness, after all that, I was nonetheless listening, by the way. I wasn't watching the White Lotus. I was mesmerized by the frogs, Polly. So I don't know if you said that was the last of the frogs, but no doubt there'll be more enticing creatures coming along. This is not a fad. Because I think you'd like me better as an artifact, I sit for ages in the sculpture park. Flies settle on my arms. Because I think you'd keep me close if I'd been customized in a foundry, I will myself to turn to bronze. Rain falls. J'ai la verticale dans mon esprit, I tell my spine, channeling Matisse. This is not a fad, like the long weekend I spent being Danish in monochrome knitwear, saying tak in exchange for tea. This is for real. I shall remain here unmoved by sheep and hedge trimmers until you notice me. So that was the first poem in Smoothie, my first collection, and I am going to keep a slight Gallic atmosphere in this next poem and leap seamlessly into Two Tongues, as Polly mentioned, my second collection, which is, I'm going to say hot off the press, even though, as she said, it's in fact a year old, but I feel I can get away with that because time has been so fuzzy of late. Who's counting months? I've certainly lost track of what year we're in. Contortionist. In the blackest recesses of Bistro Malatesta, entre les heures du 4 à 5, foregoing his liaison with Odette for the third time in as many days, Prudhomme observes a snailfish undulating round the hat stand's spine, the stalagmites of candles. Wants to, its sad small eyes, its cryptic lack of scales, wants to cleave to it, wants to shake the dipsomaniac in the corner, hiss, ay caramba, have you seen it? Here on the Rue Mouffetard, so far from deep sea canyons, so far from home. Considers eating it, flavored with rosemary, flavored with dill, whiskery thing. Sees it, loses it in Gauloise furls, catches it again, its curl and curl progression along a velveteen banquette. It stirs him. Its decision in oblivion to be a thing of light, and so gelatinous. Thinks of turtles nibbled at by surgeon fish, wonders if perhaps he's lost his grip. And if he has, likes it. So there we are, a bit of Frenchness. I'm not French, by the way. I just think maybe I was a can-can dancer or something in a former life. Who knows? Don't know what I'm pinning it on. So I'm going to just do a couple more poems, and these are new poems. So I'm using you, if I may, as a guinea pig. This next poem is perhaps my most political poem to date, but I haven't really written any, so it's not a biggie. We couldn't get the parts to write this poem. Our metaphor container ship is dry docked in Bratislava, and our simile warehouse in Wuppertal has had to close its doors. We apologize. Some figments, we believe, may still be in transit, but there are supply chain fractures due to disputes over paperwork. We're so sorry that we couldn't get the parts, but the task has not been helped by a general dip in the market for lyricism in the West, and in the East by surveillance tactics to curb outbreaks of oxymorons, iambics, and random enjambment. Rising divorce rates between couplets has also been unprecedented, and many of the major manufacturers of pathetic fallacy have changed profession, citing burnout. We did try to let some fancies flee away, but they got caught up in the jet blast of a cargo plane over the South China Sea. They went from AB to Mayday, Mayday, and sadly, nosedived. Once again, we apologize. We'll post here if normal service can resume. Ah, yes, now, this is my one kind of, I was going to say it's my one creaturely poem and completely forgetting my snailfish. So that's, that would have been most remiss of me. But the reason I'm trying out this new poem is it has a little bit of a Polly Atkin link because it came out of a visit to the Lake District. And I was there in the beautiful landscape that you perhaps know, with the rolling fells and the bleating sheep, and I heard a very strange call coming across the valley, and I had no idea what it was. It was quite alarming, actually. It could have been I don't know, sounded like a wild man in the woods or a pterodactyl. I did get to the bottom of it, and that's, I realized, completely given away by the poem that's on the screen. But the other reason I'm doing the poem is it mentions a car park, and that's the car park I last met Polly Atkin in. We did go to a cafe. We didn't just stand in the car park, you'll be pleased to know. We interrupt this darkness. Shuffling across the car park from the pool in my dry robe like a damp, disconsolate Cistercian, I heard them. 2 peacocks, their proclamations launched wide into the whites of the Cumbrian sky, their maladroit plainsong cutting up the backdrop of chaffinch after chaffinch, and as if from nowhere, 2 peacocks, stately home dropouts, Heritage Park rejects, with a message from beyond, or with no message, but voluble on matters unfathomable. And in the darkness of my cabin, with my shut up grief and my neural scramble, what a boon to hear the boundlessness of those 2 peacocks, broadcasting in peacock across the night. Thank you.
That was so beautiful. Thank you so much. If anyone wants to know, Claudine and I do generally just meet in car parks. That's our thing. That's what our friendship is based on. Nothing to do with the poetry thing or anything else. It's a clandestine car park relationship. Next up, I so love that. Yeah, we don't have the parts to make this poem amazing. Thank you so much for sharing those new poems with us as well. Really magic.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Hannah Hodson, who is a prize-winning poet and writer living with life-limiting illness. She's collaborated on a graphic memoir and was the recipient of a 2020 Northern Writers Award for poetry. Her first pamphlet, Dear Body, was published by Wayleave in 2018 and was followed last year in 2020 by Where I'd Watch Plastic Trees Not Grow with Verve. And then she has another pamphlet forthcoming, but her first collection will be published by Seren in spring 2022. So Hannah has been very busy. Welcome, Hannah. I'm going to stop sharing now, if that would help.
Welcome, Polly. Thank you so much for having us. I feel we've got it in common that we have both been shielding. I wonder how we've both got so many books out. It's very puzzling. No, I've had lots of time on my hands. So some context for this reading. We are in the 4th month of a 6-month hospitalisation. There's no concrete diagnosis that has been reached yet. In this section, well, in the section before, something really awful and unsettling has happened, but I'm going to leave that unsaid because I want you to buy the book in February. The italicized words on the left are poems from the speaker's point of view, and on the right are medical notes. Thursday, the 9th of April, 2015. Today, I was trained to insert a needle like a candle wick into my fat. Hannah trained in hand hygiene and subcutaneous delivery. Given sorry, the Zoom is blocking. There we go, perfect. Given certificates and signed off. Friday the 10th of April 2015. Stella says, it's quite likely you'll never eat again, as easily as suggesting a change of sheets. My grandparents don't react, don't even hear, because she is authority in her white coat. I say, okay. Gravestones, now my teeth. No need for them to function. Long-term prognosis conversation began to little reaction. Unsure she understands the bigger picture. Saturday, the 11th of April, 2015. My brother turns 14 today. It isn't just blood and electrolytes and function I'm losing. It's a whole forest of normal meeting a chainsaw. Elle is no longer present at bedside. Hannah appears on edge. Sunday, the 12th of April, 2015. Nurse Steph gives me 3 intramuscular injections. One in my bum, a part of my bum I later learn could have paralysed my leg, and another in each arm. She places my shoes on my feet as delicately as glass slippers. You take it easy. Your vitals aren't exactly normal. B12, lorazepam and metoclopramide all delivered. Sights are tender, but no concerns. Monday, the 13th of April, 2015. My 5th audition for the Saw franchise arrives as the scalpel nears my arm. I watch. I don't flinch. And maybe that's the reason I'm trapped here, not given the part. Procedure was successful. Midline replaced, although precarious positioning. Tuesday, the 14th of April, 2015. School sent me an email. They're delaying my exams, and though I agree, it doesn't stop me from feeling like a dog leashed to the strip stand, left outside a supermarket, awarded by occasional pats. Cardiology diagnosis of hypovolemia. Advised we give 3 litres of fluid per day, infinitum, increasing blood volume. Wednesday, the 15th of April, 2015. I saw my maths teacher today. Walking into clinic with his daughters, he said, "Hi, how are you? God, you've been in here forever." I didn't recognize him. His name from a different franchise of my life. I am Rachel Berry from Glee, meeting Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Discussed and agreed genetic testing, risk/benefits. Advised her that waiting lists are 1 year plus, and the NHS doesn't offer full genomic evaluation for adults, age 16 plus. Thursday, the 16th of April, 2015. Today, my body manages to transition from blood to feeding tube medication. These take 3 hours at 1 ml per minute. My gut should be a motorway, but instead there are green signs. The whole way reading, 20's plenty. Changed from IV to NJ, intravenous still prescribed, so no need to page reg overnight. Friday, the 17th of April, 2015. My friends have come down on the train. They know more about this city than I do. They watch my body, mentally drawing criminal chalk lines around its changed person. One starts, "You've lost so much weight." She shuffles in her seat. "I mean, you're so thin. We'll shop for some clothes when you're home." Another says, "Can I hug you? I'm not gonna break any of the machines or hurt you, am I?" Hannah has issues with sensation and voiding of urine. She uses the crash maneuver to facilitate this. Saturday, the 18th of April, 2015. I've mastered the art of crying silently. Tonight, it's so I don't wake the baby with an open fracture, due for surgery tomorrow. Ultrasound shows full bladder. Patient has no sensation. Advice, toilet every 6 hours. Watch kidney function. Any decrease is indicative of kidney damage/failure, and she's already borderline. And that is me. Thank you so much for having me again, Polly. What is a fabulous book.
Thank you, Hannah. And so thank you so much for sharing that with us from your forthcoming collection, which I'm so excited about. The first time I heard Hannah read her poetry about her illness, I just ended up weeping because it was so reflected some of my own experiences, and it was quite a few years ago now as well, and reminded me very viscerally of my teenage years, as that work does as well. Although I had a slightly different outcome, partly just because they couldn't work out what the hell was wrong with me. So we're moving on to hear from Erin Lawson. So Erin is one of these people who is just someone who makes things happen. Whenever I think that can't be done, I think of Erin and I think, what would Erin do? She's going to make it happen. And I owe so much to her in terms of how I think about poetry, how I think about poetry in the world, how I think about creative community. And it's such an enormous pleasure to have her here today. So her latest collection, The Century, came out in October 2020. It's another absolutely wonderful collection. So do go out and buy it. She's also got 2 other collections, all published by Milkweed. She's currently resident in Central Iowa, where she's learning about less formations, 19th century wetland drainage, settler colonialism, pollution, and climate change, alongside students and colleagues at Simpson College. So you can find out more about her at her website, obara.com, which I will put in the chat as she goes on. Welcome, Erin. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Polly. That feels like an unfair introduction to receive on a night that's really about you. Thank you all for being here, and Polly, congratulations on Much with Body and your other forthcoming work. Thank you also, Claudine and Hannah, for reading, and thank you for organizing everyone at CERN. It's really just deeply pleasing to be here. I'm going to read two poems. One is from the century, and then another one from a work in progress about migration and living in Belgium, which is where I lived for a really long time. And I'm going to share my screen now. Redaction, monument. When I was a child, I used to speak like a child, think like a child, reason like a child. When I became a man, I did away with childish things. Redaction? No. Monument. Redaction. What is not there is not there. Monument. What is not there is there. As in, the document contains pages. The frames an unlimitedness which has a limit. Something was there. Something is there. It cannot have been just anything. Has its own integrity. You cannot put just anything into the place of the. Nevertheless, the withholds itself to some extent, to the extent of, what are you? What do you mean? The refuses to the extent of each has its own being, not an erasure, but a making solid. Making itself solid. Already solid. A woman scales a flagpole on the green. Beneath her, handheld cameras held in hands. The statue crumples at the legs. It is hollow. So long it stood there full of presence. Of the hollow statue standing on the green, of the statue's hollowness, stood on the green for decades. It became scenery. It stood for an assumption about the world. The politician's face turns red on TV. He renames inquiry witch hunt. He renames law to lynching. In a world, in a country, in a century where in fact on greens, in public spaces, the use of public space was terror, then memorial to terror. The misused word hides the history. On the one hand, what is redacted might be looked around, overlooked, invisible as a backdrop or a scrim. On the other hand, is a presencing of what has been absented, the hollowness of the books I read, the statues I saw, politic articulated for me until I could begin to articulate for myself another way, a politic of a presencing of what I have absented, whether I knew it or not. I'm trying to chronicle my reading toward. As a child, one could perhaps be innocent. When I was a child, I thought like a child. In the form that is history or that is literature, no innocence. And now I am an adult trying to learn to see a hole in history, not there and not redacted as I had thought. I had not had to learn to read, therefore never did. A monument should not be redaction, a new kind of monument, not my monument. Nevertheless, I too must actually make a space for move myself out of the way for which takes its own space, is its own on the green of literature, of history, on the public green, on the green of my mind, on the green of my life. The second poem I'll read is called Summer Solstice. The cuckoo calls out in the evening, which extends nearly to midnight. In the garden, a recurrence of wind. Evening, as in that which smooths and makes even. From the years past, the cantor sings, the people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. The pale, thin blue light tinged with gold near the horizon, which becomes morning, which becomes evening. A recording has been circulating on the internet, babies crying in cages. In the desert, light appears as a flatness rendered on dimensional objects. Here in Flanders, as the light goes west, I lie in bed. No landscape is innocent. Still, I hesitate to return exclusively to those landscapes of colonialism and genocide in which I grew up. All the flax along the roadway nodding in its sleep. The solstice is a mathematical assumption about light and time. Facts, unlike mathematics, confront us with distance. You drive into the mountains alone. The muscles in my neck spasm and I find I can barely move for 48 hours. Sunlight gathers into heat in Texas and lies on the children in the camps. Light, born as energy, arrives here and here and here until it touches all our hears. A great light, the cantor sings, and the congregation returns it. Among the mountains you lose yourself. The farm workers lay down their tools late in the day. There is no migration light cannot make, or that we do not desire of it. It moves through time and space, beloved and democratic ghost. A photograph, like the one you post of the mountain, is only held light. There is heat among and upon us. Evening upon and between us. Come, babies, with your mothers and fathers and siblings, among the borderless flax, at this borderless time of year.
Thank you, Erin, so much. Absolutely amazing. Erin also has a performance on Sunday on Zoom, so maybe you can put the link to that in the chat. And then if anybody is available, they can sign up. I'm really excited to see that. So for the last few minutes, I'm going to read some poems which I'm calling Lost and Found. Here we go. So that someone pointed out the other day, there's a lot of found work in this collection, and there is, and the center of that is these poems made from transcripts of Dorothy Wordsworth's Rydell journals, which are unpublished at the moment, but are going to be published by the end of this decade, which is the most extraordinary thing after lingering. It's her 250th birthday in December. So it's really fantastic that these journals are going to be published. But first, I'm going to read a poem which is made from the words of Muriel Spark instead. And I wrote this for an anthology called Spark, which was celebrating Muriel Spark. Paper pellets on a saucer. I have been discreetly making allowances for everyone else's derangement, which is intolerant. When I look at water and sun, I think they winked their ice-hard dynamics. I hear tappity, tap, tappity, tap. What I wanted was a thinking place of green corridors. But there are diamonds in the wholemeal, in the plaster saints smashed up, in the herring roe, in the wheelchair, in the red herring of healing disability, in moist pale layers of embryo fish. Sometimes I cannot tell the difference between the real and illusory. Embroiled in a psychic allegory in which I am an author or a grandmother plotting in a cottage, warming my dissociation by a 2-barred heater, doing everything very slowly but with extreme attention, as though to avoid a drowning or a subplot involving diabolism. There are the dusty back shelves of a bookshop, figs in syrup, a sinister friend, the irregular tap, click, tap, turning up phrases like paper pellets on a saucer, unrepeatable, unrecordable, in chorus. The way you notice absurd details, it's absurd of you. I too am too ignorant to be a witch. I am off like someone taking a plunge against nature. When I sleep, I disappear as a matter of course. We are all a little mad in one or other particular. Someone asks about my book, and I think, do they mean the book I'm writing or the one in which I live? If anyone is listening, let them take note. Of course, they are symbols, but they are also voices. The typing ghost has not recorded any lively details about this poem. The reason is the typing ghost doesn't know how to describe this poem. I have an independent life. Pain convinces me that I'm not wholly a fiction. If you have no private life whatsoever, there is no knowing where you go in your privacy. You might step into your room and simply disappear. So I'm going to read a couple of little bits of Much with Body. And we had some impressive rain this morning. So there's a lot of rain in these journals. So we'll have a bit of rain first. The rain will not depart from its accustomed strongholds. A glittering shower travels over us. I have been sticking leafy green twigs of elder among my spring and winter flowers. My garden, all of the seasons, visited by bees, taking no rest. Misty, muzzling, bird-chaunting morning gone off in this misty rain. I was very poorly last night from pain and, better, still in pain. I am weakly, therefore afraid to go down, afraid of the fatigue of downstairs. Better, though in pain. Butterflies and bees amid my gardens. I am free from pain, and I could not join in prayers. My flowers everlasting, I long to be out, how I long to be free in the open air, birds all singing, the earth and air, preparation for worship and rest from slaughter. Something in the air oppresses. I am not well. Still, they tell me the air is too cold for me to go out and feel it. The blighting wind bars me up, helpless household. My little cell, glorious red of anemones, my treasure or winter. The air very soft and sacred, and one long fit of pain, but slept, almost free from pain. I hope to get out, often very well for an invalidish body. Cold wind brings pain, very weak and stiff, a violent pain in night and in the whole body, particularly weak in limbs. Driven to bed by pain and sickness, exhausted and slept, much pained, which is bad, sadly tired, much pain and all-night fever, could hardly speak, most strangely in the cold edging off, limbs very heavy and sadly pained, stronger with the air, a brilliancy surpassing anything I saw at that hour. The air does me good. I feel it restored to light. I have taken a walk in the house. Something oppresses me. The wildness of nature with elaborate formality. At night, not well, for I was oppressed and very uneasy to see me in the fresh air on grass. The next one is got a tiny bit of found language in. It's a slight cheat. It's found from the post office. And this is something that happened last year when I was going through an extended diagnosis process because chronicity never sleeps, even in pandemics. It's called breath test. My breath got lost in the post. I sent a box of it out, portioned in 6 foil bags like space food rations. I addressed it as instructed, sent it away, a long exhale, bated breath. It arrived back at my door in the arms of the postman, a large brown box of my breath, marked, addressee gone away. I held my breath to my chest, my breath weighed next to nothing. I had wasted my breath. It was a time of crisis. I had to post my breath to the hospital to keep the hospital secure. I could not go to the hospital and breathe. I caught my breath. 6 silver bags like emergency blankets around my breath, like mirrors to breathe on to check if you're living. I took my breath away. My breath returned to sender. It was not a love letter. It was not a request. It was innovation. I could not breathe at the hospital. It was a time of crisis. It was a test. I wanted to save my breath, but my breath was out of me. I could not draw breath in, only let it go again, hoping it held itself long enough to arrive like a kiss on the wind, still fresh. Needless to say, it didn't, and I had to redo that test a 3rd time, which was not super fun. So the next poem I'm going to read is the 3rd of 3 poems in the book, which use language from the pain catastrophizing subscales and kind of blur it in with other things. So there are 3 parts, 2 of which were published in the latest poetry review. And it's the 3rd one, which I'm going to read to you, which is called Teething / Magnification Subscale. And again, this is a true story of something that happened last year. Whilst writing about Dorothy Wordsworth, who famously lost all of her teeth at quite a young age, a bit of one of my teeth fell off. And I'm one of these people who has recurring nightmares about all of my teeth falling out. So that wasn't very comforting, but the dentist was. So this is Teething Magnification Subscale. In the 12th month of the year of the plague, a piece of my tooth falls off. I wonder whether something serious may happen. I swallow it before I know it. In all my dreams of teeth falling, they fall outwards, not inwards. They tumble from my mouth like hailstones from a cloud. I become afraid that the pain will get worse. Within me, the sliver of my broken tooth roots grows limbs, spawns, indestructible, inevitable. All my dreams come true, but I cannot read them. I keep thinking of other painful events. My tongue troubles the stump with its branches shorn off. It reminds me of something I've not understood, of something to come. The dentist says it's a clean break. I'm lucky. The tooth is healthy. He polishes the cutting edge smooth. And then I'm going to finish with a lot of other people's words. And this is a poem called When All This Is Over Is Over. And I know there was a whole thing last year when everybody suddenly got a bit obsessed with Kathleen Jamie's poem Locken, which has this beautiful, starts when all this is over, I mean to travel north. And then I realized that was based on another poem as well. And then people were writing other poems based on them. And then I found that there's actually quite a lot of poems which for different reasons have this phrase, when all this is over, is in it. So I smushed some of them together to make this poem. When all this is over is over. When all this is over, I mean to travel north by the high, unapproved roads, through silver birch and pine, each body a lion of courage, feeding redwoods, stalking the shoreline, probably in June, when all this is over. When all this is over, we'll follow a path. When all this is over, I plan to go north. There will be no God when this is over, rolling their trash bins out after all of this is over. When all of this is over, I mean to retire where I have made of my life something particular and real from the mossy mountainsides. Here is what I will miss. When it's over, I want to say, nobody will have heard about my special skills. When all this is over, I mean. So you have to buy the book to look at detail in all the poems that those bits come from. And I was going to finish on that, but then I remembered actually that I promised that I was going to also use some words of Eileen Punn here. So this is the last poem in the book. It's Sailing by Silver Ship. And this really is my last one. And it's got a quote from my dear friend Eileen Punn in it. And the title is a kind of quote from a song by Jen Grant. The moon is a ship and we are sailing in her. How can we not talk about her? She glistens and we glisten. She throws out nets of herself, trailing clouds like weeds, and we walk them as bridges to the stars, arm in arm, singing. And the stars themselves are glistening, aren't they? Like specks of quartz in dark rock, spangling the great unknowable expanse as it squeezes into this particular wedge of night. The swell of this road, the dark, fell sea. Soon we will be there, sister, waving from the deck of the one you call Dipper, so big we can sit in it. No, so big it will carry us away. Thank you all again so much for being here. Thank you to my wonderful guests. All of that was so amazing. And go see Erin on Sunday. Sign up, it's going to be fantastic. Buy Hannah's collection when it comes out in February. Buy Claudine and Erin's collections, which came out last year. And thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me? Goodbye, everyone. Please buy the book. Check out Saren's website. Thanks to all the wonderful poets we really enjoyed this evening. See you again soon. Thank you so much, Polly. Your words will echo in my mind.
And most importantly, thank you, Amy, that my book was one of your last books that you were working on as editor. And it's been such an enormous joy to work with you. And I should have said that at the beginning and I panicked and didn't.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been such an enormously wonderful journey and such a pleasure and so easy and so fun.